So, how to future-proof your life and your career? Now, that is the massive, gargantuan, behemoth question I'm going to try and give, if not definitive answers to, some perspectives on in this talk. And I'm going to try and do so by dancing nimbly between two sins, two equal sins, two pit holes. Pit hole one, just coming across as a satisfied middle-aged smug, and pit hole two, just not filling this time with vacuous platitude and cliche. Now, why hear this from me? And that is a good question, and one we'll all have to ask the organisers. As you can see, I'm not a celebrity, I'm not a GB Olympian athlete, I'm not a book author peddling their latest theory. I'm a pretty ordinary bloke. But I guess I am at least in possession of two simple facts. Fact one, I've had a fairly unusual, varied, and some may say eclectic career. And fact two, I stand here today some 30 years on from where many of you are, still with a smile on my face, still believing life is pretty cool. Now, I wander already perilously close to pit hole number one, but it's worth dwelling on a pretty sober reality, which is many people are deeply unhappy in their careers and their lives. So a recent survey globally by Gallup reported that there are more than twice as many employees who are actively disengaged in their careers as there are those that are actively engaged and happy in their jobs. And it is of no surprise that that finding correlates near perfectly with the grander question of life contentment. And again, a recent UK audit revealed that only 3 in 10 could claim they were happy with their lives. So the question of how to future-proof your career and your lives, how to end up in what appears to be a 1/3 bucket of engaged contentment, whilst a philosophically massive question, is, I'm sure we can all agree, a pretty important one. So that's the question set. What do I aim to do? Well, in the next 15 or so minutes is to proffer 5 personal perspectives on what has served me well in that journey. Success will be that 1 or 2 of these hopefully resonate with you and you remember them and tuck them away in your own mental toolbox for your journey ahead. Now, before I dive straight into them, it's probably worth me to give you a very brief bit of personal context on that journey. So if I step into your shoes as an 18-year-old boy, I was at a comprehensive school in South London. It was the kind of school where progression to university wasn't really talked about, to be honest. It wasn't really actively encouraged. So I went straight out into the world of work. My father at the time was a builder. He had a building company. I used to labor on his building sites in my school holidays. So my first interest area was building, and I set out and I found some experience in an architect's office. Well, I very quickly realized that that interest was not going to morph into a passion, and I changed tack. I then became a trainee computer programmer in a bank. Getting out into the world and meeting people, I then sort of realized I probably should have been a bit more curious about university, so I decided to apply to read computer studies. And it's a testament to how novel, hot, and exciting computers were at the time that I got a good degree without actually ever owning one. But at the end, I did not go into IT, and you'll hear a bit more about that in a moment. Instead, with 3 friends, we jumped in a Land Rover and drove across Africa with the aim of crossing the Sahara and climbing the 5 highest peaks in that continent and then donating our Land Rover to a children's home on completion. Well, at about halfway through that trip, literally halfway across the Sahara, we got held up by 25 Tuareg bandits, all wielding AK-47s, and they stole everything, including the vehicle. So the plan didn't go too well. It took a couple of weeks to extract ourselves out of that situation. Long story, different talk. But I eventually arrived in Zimbabwe, where I took up a job as a whitewater rafting guide on the Zambezi River and did that for a season. I then came back and I joined, took up an officer's commission in Her Majesty's Royal Marines. A very special period of my life. I did it for all of my 20s. And my reflection is, real privilege to be a member of such a high-performing organization and have, such quality colleagues on my shoulder. And also just a number of stories and scrapes and experiences, including, as an example, I was seconded to a charity that was delivering malarial medicines to really remote Amerindian communities in the heart of the Guyanese rainforest. So a very worthwhile endeavor. And it was on that project where I met my now wife, who was a British medic attached to the same project. So I got to the age of 30, my first son came along, I decided to leave the forces, And via an MBA or business studies, I joined a global company called Deloitte Consulting, and I specialized in essentially coordinating large teams of people in large-scale business transformation projects. I did that for 4 years. And then I decided to set up my own business, doing essentially the same, and I grew that business to circa 70 staff, and I sold it in 2008. And then I stayed on for a number of further years, and then essentially stepped back to my latest, I guess, current work-life chapter, which I would best describe as having fingers in pies. I advise a number of businesses. I've got a few entrepreneurial flutters. I've got some writing projects and a number of non-work, more community-related projects. So that's the context set. Now we now dive into what I feel I've learned on that journey. So my first, I've called it reflection, but tip if you want, principle, is develop a personal guiding principle. Now I'm going to tell you mine, and you're welcome to steal it. Okay, mine is, whoever has the most stories wins. I say again, whoever has the most stories wins. Now, this became really kind of clear to me in my second year break from university. Amazing experience in Africa. Now, such a core principle, and believe me, you will all have yours sort of tucked down deep inside you somewhere, is an invaluable device when it comes to navigating all of those crossroad moments in life and in your career. Those points of multiple path dilemma, which career option to take, which job offer to accept. By example, when I got to the end of my computer studies degree and I was faced with a very lucrative offer to go into IT, albeit an office job and talking to an electronic box all day, or to drive a Land Rover across Africa and join the Royal Marines, I consulted my principal, whoever has the most stories wins, no-brainer, decision made. Reflection 2, have a plan. Now, plans and the act of planning, they've come in for a bit of a bashing recently, particularly in the business sort of entrepreneurial startup world, where it's all now about agile, flexible working. Now, having a mindset of improvise, adapt, and overcome, as the Royal Marines definitely taught me, is invaluable, but so are plans. And I'm talking about plans now in the context of your own life and career. The brutal reality is most people spend more time planning their summer holidays than they do their lives. And I'm imploring you to take the time and effort, because it does take time and effort, hence why plans have probably fallen a little bit from favor, to map out your own life and career goals. And because it's the very function of mulling those aspects over and writing them down on paper that will significantly increase your chances of being successful in delivering them. Now, this doesn't mean having all the answers. Those plans can be high level, and nor do plans stay static. They can and should evolve. And nor do plans somehow sort of squeeze the serendipity out of life. Conversely, having a plan sets the tram lines on which great adventures can be directed and overlaid. But by example, sat on that rock, and I remember taking the photo, is where I wrote down my post-university goals, whilst I was in Africa, to come back and drive a Land Rover across that continent and to join the Royal Marines. When I left the Royal Marines, this was the plan I wrote, which amongst other goals, I decided I wanted to start my own business within 5 years. At year 4 of that 5-year journey, I took a week's holiday from my then employer and sat down and wrote this business plan, which described how I could go from a singleton startup to a company of value in 5 years. And then this is the plan that sort of tries to keep me honest to my current work-life chapter, including goals such as supporting great initiatives and institutions as this one. So plans work, write one. Reflection 3, regularly review your life balance. Now, you're at an age where you don't need to worry about this too much at the moment, okay? I mean, one of the unalloyed joys of being young is the crazy imbalance on occasion. Just don't leave it until you're 30 to sort of check in on this matter. You see, balance in life is not done over a time horizon of a day, a month, or even a year, but leave it 10 years, and you're at serious risk of joining those 2/3 malcontents. I personally have many friends and acquaintances at this stage of their lives who are very successful. They've had great careers. Some have earned stacks of money. But many are deeply unhappy. Many are grossly unfit. And many have personal relationships that have suffered a death by a million tiny knife acts of omission, a million tiny knife cuts. Believe me, that is a really hollow victory. Especially so because all of the research into life contentment says that nurturing quality relationships is what really lies at the heart of that matter. If I'm really honest, I wandered perilously, dangerously close to it myself. So driving a business that was based in London for nearly 8 years was a dangerous asymmetry, and hence why I took a very deliberate decision to recalibrate. Now I'm going to share with you a really simple tool. It's called the balance wheel. It's with my sort of modification, but it's a borrowed concept. And with some prescient maturity, you might want to use this as the index page on the personal plan I'm advocating that you write. But promise me you at least look at it before you hit 30. Okay, it has 8 octants. You can see them there. Family and friends, story and experiences, physical health, financial security, maybe some early savings. Remember, stories and experiences, whoever has the most wins. Career and work, home and habitats, you probably don't need to worry about that too much for a while. Personal development, beyond college and university, and community, how you might serve yours. So this has really sat at the heart of all of my personal plans, and I often take a stock take. I kind of give myself an honest 1 to 10 score. I make sure I've got a number of meaningful goals in each. And I guess in summary, we haven't got the time for me to unpack all of my other octants, and nor do I pretend you'd be particularly interested in hearing it, but I seek to fill as much in those as I do to octant 5. Let me finally say this on balance. Balance is not some utopian destination you ever arrive at. It's deluded to think that, okay? However, if you meaningfully take active self-ownership of it, because no one else is going to do it for you, aspire for it, and take decisions germane to it, that is absolutely what separates the 1/3 from the 2/3. So your challenge is to find a device that keeps this aspect in check for you, even if that is in 5 years' time you schedule your first life review. Reflection 4. Beware the talent myth. Well, I am fascinated by the topic of high-performing teams and organizations and why some organizations absolutely excel and others just sort of meander along. And my personal observation is those that are super successful, they always have this unrelenting pursuit for excellence, but coupled with a collective humility to recognize they never quite get there. My personal render of this to you is take your future career and profession very, very seriously, but not yourself. It is about having what Professor Carol Dweck calls the growth mindset, as opposed to the talent mindset, which is a sort of sense of, talent is an inherent given. Now, of course, we all stand here with different attributes, different backstories, different experiences. But the determinant of your future skills and talents and achievements hinges not on your predisposition now, but on your mindset, whether you genuinely believe life is about that humble, continuous learning and self-development, or a kind of fait accompli, I am what I am type attitude. The former mindset will take you very, very far, the latter mindset, nowhere. You see, talent is vastly overrated. It is hard work and applied effort that converts talent into skill, and it is hard work and applied effort that converts skill into achievement. Applied effort is the force multiplier, not talent. So all I would say on this one is just maybe take a moment, listen to your own self-talk, growth mindset or fixed mindset, and maybe time to make a life-changing mental switch. Now, my 5th and final reflection is invest in the interesting. So I don't know about you, but when I was 18, I used to get really irked by the follow your dreams, pursue your passion type rhetoric. I had friends who had this kind of future crystal clarity, and I really disliked them for it, because frankly, I didn't have a clue. So I'm just going to discharge some slightly more pragmatic advice on this one. You are setting out on a long journey. And I hope one day you'll arrive at a place that you can say you're passionate about what you do, the field you work in. You may even say you've found your purpose, or even your calling. Just don't beat yourself up if that doesn't happen straight away. Rather, when you leave school, college, university, just get out in the world, take your interest, something you're intellectually interested in, something you enjoy doing, and rub it against the world. Engage in it, ideally with other people, because only then will you discover whether that interest morphs into a passion. If it does, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't really matter. Get the next interest and rub that against the world. Okay, it's far more about the proactive search than it is the destination. So invest in the interesting, and the rest will follow. So there you have it, the 5 reflections. Develop a personal guiding principle. Have a plan. Regularly review life balance. Beware the talent myth. And invest in the interesting. I'm going to leave you with just one concluding sort of observation. When I was asked to give this talk a few weeks ago, I hurriedly went around and conducted an informal survey. I grabbed my friends and acquaintances down the streets and the corridors and said, look, if you got up on this stage and you had to opine on this matter, what would you say? And I was really struck by 2 phrases that kept coming back over and over again. So I'm going to leave those with you, but in so doing, I'm definitely going to jump into pit hole number 2. I just want to say I wish you every future success. Travel well.